Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be exploring all the different OpenFront.io variants, including Solarfront, Tacticfront, and a number of other games. Plus, as a special bonus, we're also going to get into the drama about OpenFront being stolen and the creation of Front Wars.io at the end of the vid, so stay tuned for that. The first OpenFront.io variant was developed in April 2025, and it's called Lands for Glory. The main changes that were made in this game include an awesome launch screen and cool new colors that really made nations stand out in-game. Unfortunately, Lands for Glory was basically just an early version of OpenFront without buildings, bombs, or units. In fact, it was such an early fork of OpenFront that you could actually betray players without a defense debuff. When the game was first released, I was able to test it after chatting with the dev about his vision for the game. In particular, the goals included adding submarines and paratroopers, as well as creating ability-based game modes involving fog of war and capturing zones. Broadly, the focus for Lands of Glory was going to be on unit and ability-focused gameplay as its route of differentiating itself from OpenFront. In the end, things didn't pan out for Lands for Glory, as it didn't get any more updates after my initial playtest, and eventually was taken offline. It was, however, a pilot example, and many other developers followed suit by forking OpenFront's code. The next OpenFront variant that was developed is Solarfront.io, or OpenFront in space. The main standout differences of this game are the reskinned homepage and units, addition of an in-game chat feature, which I'm sure will never be used toxically, hotkeys and buildings for bombs, and more recently an autoplay feature that handles aspects of the game like attacks, buildings, and troops to workers ratio. Solarfront has also added 2 new units, including a turret called an orbital cannon and a tanky SAM ship called a Condor. In terms of my perspective on the game, having followed Solarfront's development for the past few months, I can definitely say I've had fun playing multiplayer and coming up with different custom game modes like Nuke Wars and Capture the Moon. However, I still think there are a lot of notable challenges with the game. For example, I did some multiplayer testing with another YouTuber named Befur a few months ago, and what we found is that the game has a fundamentally broken gameplay loop, which is to say that with just general gameplay, I don't think that games have a practical way to end. In the casual test, we ended up playing for nearly 50 minutes, and if half of us hadn't just decided to call it, we would have continued with a never-ending cycle of MIRVs, bombing, and space defense. While I can say there have been some balance changes to Solarfront since this original playtest, including removing MIRVs and price changes to buildings and bombs, in my view, the game struggles given that it only has 2 maps, and it just doesn't have a gameplay loop that improves meaningfully on the OpenFront experience. This perspective pairs with recent updates that have unfortunately been quite buggy, and while the dev has said that the game is only 30% of its final version, I have a tough time seeing how this pans out given the issues we've already seen. This said, I definitely wish the dev the best in improving his game, and we can move on to checking out some other variants that were built after Solarfront. Initially developed in June of 2025, Tacticfront was the third OpenFront.io variant to be created. In particular, the game adds significant layers of complexity from OpenFront.io gameplay. And I can also say that these changes have been to the point that people have likened the complexity of Tacticfront to a Hearts of Iron 4 OpenFront.io hybrid. In terms of its standout features, Tacticfront introduces many different buildings, including nuclear reactors, hospitals, and research labs. It has a tech tree with many unique upgrades, and it also includes strike packages that allow you to send mass quantities of bombs all at once, which is absolutely my favorite part of the game. The game also offers a unique attack meta, in which multiple attacks can push on the same front simultaneously, as well as a reinforcement slider that automatically sends more troops once an attack has begun. Overall, there's a lot to Tacticfront, even beyond this abbreviated description. Now, in terms of my experience testing out the game, every time I play, I have a type of dual perspective. On the one hand, the game is really cool. The different buildings and features makes gameplay unique, and there are a lot of customizable paths you can take in how you build your nation. The flip side of this is the game often feels excessive, with numerous buildings that don't promote interactions with other players, a confusing reinforcement slider, and also complexities relating to maintaining standing armies with gold. And I can also mention that even the developer has been questioning the direction of the game, given the issues with accessibility and complexity, back when the game was being more actively developed in July. Now, in spite of these critiques, I think Tacticfront has a ton of potential with the features it's piloted. And of all the OpenFront forks, in my view, it's the most unique. Moving on to our next fork, Teratomic.io is a recent variant that builds off early version 23 OpenFront.io attack metas. Overall, the game aims for a more military aesthetic and has a number of unique features, including an investment slider which can boost economy, and I can just mention it was very fun to exploit in my first beta test of the game, as well as a number of new buildings including hospitals, military barracks, and airfields that allow you to create fighters and bombers. The addition of airplanes is definitely the standout feature of the game. However, I think Teratomic still has a number of issues that need to be addressed. First, I generally found the attack meta to be sluggish, but my main critique of the game is I don't understand how Teratomic meaningfully builds an OpenFront's experience. Planes are definitely cool, but it just seems like a slower version of bombing buildings. And the other building editions don't promote additional interactions from the base game. My point here is what I hope to see in OpenFront.io forks are innovative features that build on the gameplay experience that OpenFront already offers. And while I know Teratomic has a big update inbound, time will tell if this game is able to create a new unique experience. For our next variant, while it might be somewhat disingenuous to add it to this list, I'm just gonna say that BonkFront exists. As an orange copy-paste version of OpenFront with a ChatGPT crypto description and non-functional multiplayer, BonkFront.io offers nothing new. This said, its existence as a carbon copy of OpenFront alludes to the kind of issues we'll see with Front Wars. Now, as a special addition to this video, I want to briefly highlight warfront.io, which is actually not an OpenFront.io variant. It's the game that OpenFront was built on. Specifically, Warfront was created in 2024 by the well-known territorial.io modder Platts. And for context, some YouTubers even thought that Warfront was going to be the next big thing until OpenFront took off last February. Now, at this point in time, Warfront is a single-player game with 2 maps, an attack slider, and you can click on other bots to attack them. Unfortunately, in its current form, I would describe Warfront as a patience simulator, just because you have to wait around so long to get the troops you need to attack that there's not much to the game. At this point in time, development is still ongoing with Warfront, and I definitely wish Platts the best with his project. But my main purpose here is to show you a bit about OpenFront's origins, as well as to highlight how far it's come. And with that, we can now get onto the situation with FrontWars.io. So if you haven't heard, a couple weeks ago, the OpenFront.io dev, Evan, made a video and a Reddit post about his game being stolen. Specifically, a game called Front Wars was forked from OpenFront.io's code, made no changes, and was being marketed with a logo that was made to look exactly like OpenFront. And while the video has since been taken down, on the Front Wars Steam page, there appeared to be promotional materials that were just plagiarized from an OpenFront.io YouTuber named Ultimus Rex. Now, all this said, much of the back and forth has been about whether or not it's been legal to fork OpenFront.io's code. And in this video, I'm not going to get into the legality of the licenses that govern open source code. But I think there are a lot of good questions about thinking about how all this was done. And if you even watch Mystic's full response, he's even talking about getting it to market and thinking about competition. Plus, if you go to Front Wars Discord, you'll see that every day people are confusing the game with OpenFront. Now, since this original recording, it looks like Front Wars has finally started making some changes, but let me know what you think about this whole situation, and if you want to learn more about the other forks, let me know in the comments section. Take care.